Peace. I trust you're healthy and well, and welcome to day 5 of One Nation Daily, part of a 30-day challenge where I show up here and speak about a different topic. Now, this is supposed to be daily, although I haven't been here for the last couple of days because my schedule didn't allow it. So apologies for anyone who was waiting for this episode from 2 days ago. The weekend did not allow it, but we're here now. Day 5, and this may be a Monday to Friday thing if this week was anything to go by, but we'll see. We're going to find out together. But today is day 5, and today I want to speak about how to choose the right DJ for your event or the right sound system for your event, how to make sure that you are getting and choosing the right DJ for your event and the right sound system for your event or your milestone celebration. All right, I want to go over some of the things that people neglect, are not aware of, or overlook or ignore, and end up getting it wrong and regretting it because they've got it wrong. And I want to make sure or help you to not make those mistakes as well. All right, we're dealing primarily with milestone celebrations, and they tend to be one-offs, they tend to be rare, they tend to be very special occasions, and so they're things where you can't really afford to get them wrong. You do not, everything has to go right, everything must go right. So you put a lot of effort, energy, time, thought, money into those events usually. So the last thing you want is to book the wrong DJ or the wrong sound that just comes and flops your show and just makes it terrible and means that you and your guests or your relatives or your friends don't have the experience that you were looking to have. All right, so getting the right DJ and the right sound can be vital, crucial to the success or failure of your event or your milestone celebration. So we want to make sure that you get it right. Okay, so some tips to make sure that you get it right. I'm going to start with the DJ first, picking the right DJ first, and then we'll move on to tips to pick the right sound system. Okay, so DJ first. First thing I always advise people or ask people is, have you heard the DJ that you're interested in booking? Have you heard them play in a live setting, live music setting, or live setting, I should say, not necessarily live music? Have you heard them play? Have you heard them or experienced them doing their thing in a live setting to a group of people? You should always try and hear the DJ play in that kind of situation before you book them, if you can. All right. So do they have a residency, or do they have a gig coming up where you can go down and watch them and listen to them and see how they do their thing, how they play their music, what kind of selection they play? Do they mix? How well do they mix? What's their interaction like with the crowd or with the audience? All of these things. You can just check out everything about how they do what they do, and then ask yourself, is this the kind of experience that you're looking to hire? Is this the kind of experience you're looking to bring to your event or to your celebration? So always go and check out the DJ in a live setting if you can. If the opportunity presents itself, take it. If they don't have a residency, or there isn't an upcoming opportunity for you to go and check them out in a live setting, then do they have an online space where you can kind of check them out there and get a sense of what they're about as a DJ? So say, for example, do they have a Mixcloud page where they upload either mixes that they've done or live DJ sets that they've done? Do they have a SoundCloud page? Do they have a Spotify account? Do they have a YouTube channel, a Twitch channel? Do they have a website with examples of their mixes or music there? Do they have a radio show that you can listen to? Do they have a space somewhere online where you can go and check them out and get a sense for how they do, or get a sense of how they do what they do as a DJ? All right. Now, bear in mind that checking people out in an online space is not necessarily going to give you all of the answers that you're looking for, especially with a radio show. say for example, someone could have a radio show that's late at night. The aims of a radio show can be very different for that of a live setting. The agenda, the assignment can be very different. If you've got a late night radio show, that might be about getting people ready for sleep and creating that kind of energy, and lowering a more peaceful kind of energy. It could be about, your radio show could be about introducing people to new music. It could be about starting conversations. It could have a number of aims that do not align with playing out in a club or in a live setting. All right. So how someone does their radio show can be very, very different to how they turn up in a club or party. So bear that in mind. Same with mixes that people put out now. I mean, you can put out a perfect mix. You can keep editing a mix and doing it perfectly and put it out there as a standard. But when you're in a live setting, you don't have the opportunity to keep going back and, oh, that mix didn't go well, let me go back and do it again, that kind of thing. You got to be able to do these things live, which is why I always advise you try and listen to the DJ perform in a live setting. All right, so be mindful. Checking them out in an online space isn't going to provide all the answers that you're probably looking for, but it will at least give you a sense of what they're about and how they do what they do. So check them out either in person if you can, and if not, in an online space. The other thing to bear in mind when you're checking out a DJ that you are potentially looking to hire for your celebration is, are they professional? Is he or she professional? Now, yes, you want a good DJ. Okay, and that's the first thing that most people are going to be looking at. Some not, some are just going to be looking straight at the cost. But a lot of people want a good DJ first. Everybody wants a good DJ. Nobody wants a rubbish DJ. That's one thing. But whether the DJ is good or not, and whether or not they are professional, are two completely different things. Okay, you can have a really good DJ who's really unprofessional, and you can have someone who carries themselves very professionally but is just really not a very good DJ. They are two separate things. All right, so check out their professionalism. And what am I talking about when I say that? I'm talking about, are they punctual? Are they respectful? Do they bring the same values or share the same values as you? Do they have good hygiene? All of these things go into the professionalism. How easy are they to deal with? What's their communication like? Either over digitally or in person. What's their communication like? Do they respond to messages or calls quickly, or are you waiting for ages? Do you have to be running them down to get a response for things? These are the things that go towards someone's level of professionalism, and these can make a big difference to you when you're hiring someone. You don't want to hire someone who's a good DJ but they're an absolute nightmare to work with, or they're a nightmare for your guests. They're not respectful for your guests. They turn up late, them smell bad, they ain't washed, whatever. Do you know what I mean? So are they professional as well? Look at that. Do they have an online space, like a place where people leave reviews for them, like Google reviews or something like that? If they do, check them out and see what other people's experience has been of booking that same said person. And I'll share an experience of a bad experience that I saw not too long ago. I was booked to do a funeral. Myself and HSA, we were booked to do a live stream of a funeral. Many of you know that we do live streams of events. Now, a lot of those events that we live stream are funerals. And this family had booked us to do the entire day, the church service, the cemetery, and the reception as well. So we are now at the end of the day, and we're at the reception, live streaming the reception of the funeral. And the sound system was there already. They were set up and playing and doing their thing. Now, what did we notice? First thing I have to draw attention to, or that caught my attention, I should say, was the way that one of the sound men was dressed. Now, this was a funeral, and everybody who was there was dressed appropriately for a funeral. All right, myself and HSA included, as we always are when we show up for these kind of events. Everybody was dressed respectfully, and this was an elder's funeral. And judging from the number of people that showed up for this man's funeral, this man was someone who was very much loved and respected, not just by his family, but within the community. A lot of people showed up for this man. And so everybody, as I said, was dressed respectfully. But one of the sound men was there in, I think it was trainer boots on his foot. He had on jeans. Now, jeans, you can have smart jeans and you can have like outer road jeans. He had on outer road jeans and a G-Unit baseball top, down here with the white stripes and big G-Unit on the front and on the back and his do-rag on his head. And he was the most underdressed person in the room. Even the staff, the catering staff, the venue staff, everybody was dressed with a level of respect for this event, except this guy. And he's up front on the stage in front of everybody. That was the first thing that struck me, how little respect he showed in terms of the clothes he'd chosen to put on and come to this funeral with. Next thing, we are hearing, every time he speaks on the microphone, we're hearing feedback through the speakers. So I think it was myself, or I think it was HSA went up to him and just had a little word and just let him know, hey, look, we're hearing feedback out here on the mic. You might want to just lower the levels a little bit. He didn't want to hear that at all. He did not take well to us telling him that something wasn't going right. As far as he was concerned, there was something wrong with our ears. We were the problem. There was something wrong with us. We are not hearing what we're hearing. Okay. All right then. We kept it moving because we're there to do the live stream. We just went and sat neatly back in our lane and continued doing what we were doing with the live stream. Little after that, a member of the family went up to the same person, and you could tell this woman was asking him to just turn the volume down a little bit. And from the expressions of her around the room, I could see she was doing like this. I could see she was kind of like saying, people are eating, they're sitting down. Can you just lower the level a little bit while we're eating? And that's the time of the evening that we were in. We were in the time of the evening where people are still arriving and people are taking their seats and they're having their conversations and they're starting to have their food and eat, and they're at their tables, as I said, having their conversations amongst themselves. So from what I could figure out, she was asking just to lower it while people are at the tables having their conversations and eating their food. Maybe some of the elders there were hard of hearing already anyway. This music wasn't helping. But again, the guy didn't take well to this at all. And in fact, he started to argue with this woman, who I believe is one of the next of kin. He was arguing with this woman. I could tell by the way that he was gesticulating that he was getting vexed. He was like this. So we could see that there was an argument happening now at the front of the room, at the stage, where she's asking him to please lower the levels a little bit. And he's arguing with her, saying there's nothing wrong with the music, it's fine. Now, this should have been a no-brainer. If a member of the family comes up to you and just asks you to lower the levels a bit while the people are eating and having their conversations, the professional response is, sure, no problem, sorry, I'll do that right now, sorry. That's it. That's literally it. And you just drop the levels a little bit and keep it moving. Respect the family, respect the people in the room, and you keep it moving, you keep things professional. This guy was having a full-blown argument with this woman just because she'd asked him to lower the levels a little bit while people were eating and talking. To make matters worse, not only did the guy argue quite disrespectfully with the woman in front of everyone at the front of the room on the stage, he then went on strike. The guy decided that he was no longer going to play any more music, and he went on strike and walked off and left the place in silence. I kid you not. This happened right here in London. The guy went on strike and decided, I'm not playing any more music, and walked off and left the place in silence. Now, thankfully, there was another DJ there who had his controller set up as well. And so he had to come up and take over and start playing the music because the first guy had left. So this is the kind of unprofessionalism I'm talking about. These are the kind of things that you want to protect yourself from. And this is why it's important that you check people out properly before you engage them. And this is why it's important that you check out their levels of professionalism. How are they to deal with? How do they speak to you when you deal with them? Like I said, what's their communication like? Are you waiting for days to them to respond for something, or you happen to chase them for stuff? Check out their levels of professionalism as well. The last thing you want at an event or an occasion like this is to have someone like this, or have to deal with someone like this. And this is at the funerals. And if this was a next of kin, they're in enough distress as it is. You know, they are in the midst of their grief and their loved one's funeral. They've got enough on their plate without having to deal with this kind of unprofessionalism and this kind of behavior as well. And nobody wants that. So check out the DJ and check out their level of professionalism as well, from the very beginning when you start to deal with them and engage with them. That's the DJ. I'm going to move on to the sound. Things you need to bear in mind in choosing the right sound. And I should also say just one more thing on the DJ is try and get a sense of their energy. Is their energy aligning with yours? Do you get a good energy from them? And is this an energy that you feel you want to invite into your celebration amongst your people? Yeah, so check that as well. Sound system. All right, let's move on to that. First thing I advise people when hiring a sound system, or the first question I should say, is have you heard the sound for yourself with your own ears? If you haven't, I highly recommend you listen to it if you can. All right. So like with a DJ, do they have a residency, or is there an event coming up where the sound's going to be active, where you can go along and listen to what that sound system sounds like in a live active setting? All right. So when you do, go there with your listening ears and pay attention to what the sound sounds like. Have you heard this sound play before somewhere? What were your memories? What was your recollection of that sound playing at that event that you went to? Is your memory that, yeah, the sound sounded good? Or was your memory that this sound sounded terrible? It was grating my ears. It sounded horrid. What was your experience of listening to that sound system? Now, bearing in mind, you might not always have the opportunity to do this, because very few sound system owners are going to set up their sound system just for you to listen to it. So you might not get the opportunity. But if the opportunity arises, I strongly advise that you take it. Or if you've heard the sound before, then cast your memory back to what was your memory of what that sound sounded like. Was it positive or was it more negative? So have you heard the sound before? Try and get to listen to the sound if you can. If the opportunity arises, please take it. Not only have you heard the sound, the next point is, have you seen the sound? Why do I say this? Because we're talking primarily here about milestone celebrations. All right, milestone celebrations of life. And these types of celebrations tend to be one-offs. They tend to be rare. They tend to be very special occasions where people have put a lot of thought, a lot of time, effort, energy, money into this event. They have a particular vision of how they want this event to go down, and they can't afford to get this wrong. Because it's a milestone, you can't afford to get it wrong. Everything must be right. Okay? So one of the things that normally happens at milestone events is the room there where the celebration is going to be happening is decorated to a certain level and standard. Now, there's usually a lot of effort and energy, time, thought, and expense that goes into decorating a room and making a room look and feel a certain way for a milestone celebration. It can be quite stressful. I know a lot of people have had that experience. It's quite stressful. But a lot of energy goes into making a room look and feel a certain way for a milestone celebration. The last thing you want, therefore, is to have gone through all of that time, trouble, and effort to then bring in the sound system that just looks ugly and bata and out of place with all the effort and energy that you've put into the room. It does not align with the energy and the effort that's been put into making this room look and feel a certain way. It's counterproductive to all of that effort and energy and expense that you've put into decorating this room. I will give you a couple of examples, painful examples. But there was one, again, another funeral that I attended, and the room, as I've said, was decorated very nicely. You could tell the effort and energy, thought and care, time and attention to detail that had gone into decorating this space and making it look and feel a certain way for this funeral. Then there's the sound system that's in the place. Very big. In my personal opinion, they brought way too much speakers for the size of the space and for the occasion, but the sound was too much. Although that being said, in fairness to the sound owners, they did not play the sound too loud. Okay, so I have to give them credit. I thought they bought too much, but maybe that's the only set that they have. Maybe they don't have two sets, a smaller set and a big set like we do. Maybe they just have the one big set and that's all they have to go on. But they played it at a good level. So the fact that it was too big, the speakers were too big and there was too many speakers wasn't so much of an issue. What was more of an issue was the state of the speakers. They were filthy. When I say they were dusty, I don't mean that metaphorically. I mean that in a very literal sense. They were full of dust and dirt. These speakers looked like they'd been kept in someone's shed or garage for about 5 years and never seen the light of day in that time. You could see the cobwebs in the front of the speakers, the speaker grills. They were terrible. It looked horrid. And so in the context of this room that has been decorated so nicely, this sound looked awful. Another funeral I also attended, and the DJ there had a smaller sound, but the speakers, now he had a couple of similar speakers to what I have in terms of the small subs that he had. However, his speakers looked like they'd been flung down 10 flights of stairs twice. Like, I don't know what this person had been doing to their speakers to have them look the way that they did. These speakers look beat to death, and these are not old speakers. These are not some old speakers. I know these are active powered speakers. Like I said, I have a couple of them myself, so I know they're not very old. What this person did or was doing to have his speakers looking like that in these people's funeral reception, I have no idea. Again, this room had been decorated nicely. You see the care and energy that's gone into decorating the room, and then this sound just looks terrible at the front. The speakers were beat to death. Not only that, the sound sounded horrific. It was horrid, grating my ears. It was offensive to my ears and the people around me. It was terrible, absolutely terrible. So these are the kind of things that you want to avoid for any milestone celebration or any event. Nobody wants this. And these things happen when people don't do their due diligence on the DJ or the sound system that they're looking to enlist for their event. So have you not only heard the sound, have you seen the sound? Because the last thing you want is, as I said, to decorate the space lovely, make it look really nice and create a beautiful energy, and then you just have this ugly bata sound in the place. Just looks totally out of place and actually takes away from all the effort that you've put into decorating the room. So have you seen the sound as well as have you heard it? The next thing is the equipment PAT tested? So PAT testing is portable appliance testing. Now, if you are thinking of hiring your own sound system for your event at a particular venue, and the venue is okay with you bringing in an external sound system or equipment to do the sound at your event, many of them will require evidence that the sound has been PAT tested or has a PAT testing certificate. Basically, what that means is that all the electrical equipment has been tested and has been certified to be of a certain standard, a certain good quality standard, a safe standard, and it's not going to come in and create a hazard, electrical hazard, and be a risk to people's lives or anything like that. So some venues will insist that if you're going to bring in an external sound system, that sound system owner can show or prove, verify that the equipment has been PAT tested, and there is a PAT. Normally you do that by showing or sharing a PAT testing certificate. Whoever owns the sound should have a PAT testing certificate. It's dated up to a certain time, and when it expires, then you have to do another one. So it has to be valid within the time frame, and they will just share that certificate with you, and you can share that certificate with the venue. So if you're going to bring in an external sound, it's worth asking the sound owner, is your equipment PAT testing, or do you have an up-to-date PAT testing certificate, in case your venue asks for it, because a lot of venues nowadays do ask for that if you're bringing in an external sound. And it gives you a bit of peace of mind as well to know that the equipment that's been brought in is safe and isn't going to cause a risk or a hazard to you or your guests. The other thing to say is, or the last thing I want to say is, in my general experience, you get what you pay for. All right? You get what you pay. I'm a big believer in you get what you pay for. Now, I believe that a lot of these situations that I've described to you, some of these nightmares that people have had, is because they have not had the right or used the right criteria to select these people. Now, say for example, there's one of the funerals I've already spoken about, the one with the guy, the Mr. G Unit baseball top, and I'm on strike now, and that guy. Throughout that evening, all the things that this person was getting wrong, I kept thinking, and myself and Hearsay, we were talking and kept trying to figure out how. In fact, initially, I was cursing this guy to myself, and I guess to Hearsay as well. I was cursing this guy, saying, how could he come dressed like this? How can he behave like this? How can he be so disrespectful? In this place of all places, at a funeral, for crying out loud, how can you come to a place like this and show such disrespect? And so my criticisms were initially of him. But the more I thought about it, is the more I started to think, how did this guy get here? Who booked this person? How did this person come to be in this position? What criteria did they use to book that resulted in them booking this person? And the only thing that I could come up with is, the only criteria that they used is, who do we know who has a sound system, who can play music? That's it. That's the only thing I could come up with in terms of a criteria that was used that resulted in this person being booked for this event. Who do we know who has a sound that can play music? I believe that was the only criteria that was used that resulted in booking this person. Or who do we know, or who is the cheapest? Who can we book for the cheapest or the least amount of money that can bring a sound and do the music. One of those two. I don't believe any other criteria could have possibly have been used that would have resulted in this person being booked for this event. So I say this because, as I said before, these other things I've mentioned need to be taken into consideration. But also, if your only criteria is spending the least amount of money by getting someone who you know who has a sound who will do it for free or bring it for free or bring it for next to nothing, if that's your only criteria, you are inviting disappointment, headache and stress into your life, and it's likely to not go well. All right, you get what you pay for. At the end of the day, you can't get a Benz for Ford money. I say again, you cannot get a Benz for Ford money. So if you want to have a good experience, if this is a milestone celebration and it's really important to you, it's your wedding, it's your milestone birthday, it's a loved one's funeral, it's an important occasion, then I would strongly advise you to have more criteria than just what's the least amount of money that we can spend, or who do we know that's got a sound, and that just being it. Okay, so that's my last point, or my last pointer, is you get what you pay for. You cannot get a Benz for Ford money. All right, if it's that special of an occasion, then let that reflect in the money that you spend or invest in getting the right person or people to do the job the way that you want it and need it to be done. I hope that's been helpful to someone, anyone out there. Please share this because somebody might need to see this, and we need to prevent some of these calamities from happening going forward. All right, so please share this. If you have any tips that you would like to add, please leave them in the comment section. If you have any questions for me, then also please leave those in the comment section, or just let me know what you think about this video in general. Please also hit the subscribe button. It's a very small thing, it doesn't cost anything, but it does help us here a lot at the channel. So please hit the subscribe button as well, and like I said, share this with someone who might need to see or hear it. That's it for now. I'll be back tomorrow with another one. Until then, stay blessed. Peace.